I purchased my lakeshore home, envisioning peaceful mornings and sunsets of gold. A peaceful retreat from the world. The crown jewel was the waterfront, ideally suited for a top-of-the-line floating dock. I invested heart and savings into high-density polyethylene floats, elegant aluminum skeletals, splinter-free composite decking. It was a work of art, costing me tens of thousands and a mountain of paper for permits and surveys. The deed was crystal clear. The shoreline and water access were mine alone, explicitly carved out of the neighborhood's common land. Years ago, I had surveyor's markers marked to establish it. This dock was my sacred place where I'd fish kayak and throw my humble birthday barbecue. But my vision of paradise was destroyed when the Homeowners Association, spearheaded by the insufferably entitled Pamela, decided my private dock was their platform for a lavish summer party without so much as a courtesy call. Pamela, the HOA's recently minted president, lived blocks from the lake, something that just seemed to drive her obsession with dominating waterfront properties. She'd pick apart my lawn, criticize my paint job, even remark about my trash cans alignment while I remained under the bylaws. I shrugged it off, but things boiled over when the HOA promised their summer event. Vaguely speaking of lake activities, I didn't think much of IIY had their own run-down community beach on the other side of the cove. Then 2 weeks before my birthday, Pamela and her lackeys, Greg and Susan, sauntered down my driveway as if they owned the place. Pamela, dressed in a tacky floral print dress, waved at my dock with a regal flourish. "This is perfect," she said, as if I wasn't standing there. "Ideal for the catering arrangement and the views, much better than that dirty community point." I moved forward, shocked. "Pamela, this is my private dock. It's on my deed, not HOA property." Her smile was unadulterated condescension. "Oh, darling, lake access is for the neighborhood. Think of it as your contribution to community appeal." Greg, a stressed former banker, grumbled about shared assets, while Susan smiled keenly, delighted at the party boost. I stood firm. "No, you have your beach. My dock is off limits. You're trespassing. Please leave." Pamela's smile disappeared, her eyes furrowing. "Some people don't understand community spirit," she sniffed. Storming off, I fired off a formal email to the HO board, referring to my deed and prohibiting dock use silence. Their audacity, ramped-up flyers appeared defiantly promoting the lakeside lounge at my address, infuriated me. This wasn't ignorance, it was taunting. I sent another email citing state trespassing laws and including my deed and survey, still no response the day before my birthday, which happened to coincide with their event. I came back from running errands to find a generator folding tables, chairs, and patio. Lights scattered all over my dock and yard. They'd trespassed in my absence, turning my sanctuary into their party hub. Rage boiled hot and keen. I dialed Pamela's phone voicemail. I left a message threatening to have them take their trash away, or I'd assume it was abandoned. No answer. Enough was enough if they wanted to use my dock as if it were a public barge. I'd make it one I'd studied the dock's anchor system. Quick-release shackles for seasonal removal. Mine utilized bolts, but I knew how to unfasten them. The weather forecast thunderstorms after meal. A sinister turn to my scheme, I canceled my birthday barbecue. Texting friends I'd describe later that evening, I hardly slept. My brain jogging with checklists and penalties, but determination overpowered fear. Pamela's bullying arrogance had to cease at sunrise. Humidity clung heavy the sky, promising the impending storm. Their party materials taunted me from my lawn wearing work clothes. I took my equipment wrench, pry bar bolt cutters, waterproof grease. My phone documented quietly at the dock. I lubricated the shore ramps, hinge pins, loosening them for a speedy pull. Waiting in shallow water. I crawled under the frame, fighting with 2 shoreside anchor bolts. They were recalcitrant, but I released them, leaving the dock held by 2 deeper anchors and the ramp's pressure. It appeared normal. No one would ever suspect a thing by 8 a.m. I was showered, drinking coffee, monitoring my security feed. Catering vans came parking brazenly in my driveway. Pamela, wearing a blinding orange sundress, marched staff around like a dictator, draping tables with linen and hanging lights. Guests filtered in by 11:30, drinks in hand. While Pamela performed gracious host on my hijacked stage, my stomach roiled, but it was time, babbling to tin my garden. I glided to the ramp as music thundered. I pulled out the pins and pushed the dock with the pry bar, a muffled groan overpowered by party din, and the dock moved an inch, then two, drifting away. I retreated to my porch, shielded by rose trellises. Heart racing with grim pleasure, the gap opened a foot, then 5. A guest pointed aghast. A woman gasped. Pamela Midenote stood, her mouth a perfect O, the dock with 15 partygoers catering equipment, and Pamela's ego slid towards the cove's center. Shouts blended with nervous titters, then terror. As the gap reached 20 feet, Pamela barked orders no one obeyed. Greg glanced seasick. Susan grasped a table. The generator roared, playing pop music to a captive, frantic crowd. Then the sky darkened. The storm blew in early wind, whipping the lake into turbulent waves. Rain pounded down, transforming the soft drift into a wild bob. Lights flickered, chairs skidded into the water. Pamela's shrieks pierced the thunder. A catering table tipped over, sending dishes and maybe a guest overboard. The generator died, leaving only storm roars and screams. My plan had been to strand them in their arrogance, not endanger them from my rain lash. Porch guilt nod. The dock was sturdy, but this was a nightmare. The storm passed quickly, leaving a bruised sky and a debris-strewn lake. The dock sat 200 yards out, listing slightly. Its passengers soaked and miserable. 3, including Greg, had fallen in, but scrambled back using my life ring. Pamela, her dress plastered to her, shivered in defeat. A caterer had called 911 and the sheriff spoke. Patrol took the group to the community beach, swaddled in emergency blankets. Deputies spotted me on my porch. I spreaded out the HOA's trespass. My ignored warnings, my decision to disconnect the dock to evict them. I provided emails, footage, and no trespassing signs. They raised eyebrows at the anchor tampering, but concentrated on safety-making arrangements for a salvage firm to pull the dock. Not to my beach, but the HO's shore. Pamela requested my arrest, but the deputies recorded my trespassing evidence days later. The HOA attorney sent a demand letter, giving me accusations of endangerment, property damage, and emotional distress, demanding outrageous amounts. They portrayed me as a villain over a miscommunication. I employed Rachel, a shrewd property attorney. She smiled at my evidence deeds, surveys, emails, videos, and lodged a countersuit against the HOA, Pamela, Greg, and Susan for trespass, dock damage, and private nuisance. Months of legal wrangling followed in depositions. Pamela's claim of a community easement collapsed under Rachel's questioning. Greg admitted ignoring my warnings. Susan confessed to seeing my signs. Weather data proved the storm's sudden escalation. The sheriff's report and caterer's testimony pinned blame on the hoeing. Rachel argued, I lawfully removed trespassers by detaching the dock in calm conditions. Their choice to stay as the storm hit caused the chaos. At settlement talks, the HOA offered to drop their suit if I dropped mine. Rachel refused, facing a weak case and public embarrassment. They caved. They dropped their lawsuit, paid for dock repairs, re-anchoring, and my legal fees, and issued an apology, admitting the trespass. Rachel pushed further. Pamela, Greg, and Susan had to perform 40 hours of community service, maintaining the HOA's neglected beach and picnic areas. They agreed, desperate to avoid trial. Watching the salvage crew restore my dock seemed to recover my soul. The apology was formal, but damning. Watching Pamela, Greg, and Susan weeding and dragging garbage under the eye of a no-nonsense volunteer was poetic justice. Pamela's arrogant demeanor shattered her influence. Tanked neighbors, once been swayed by her victim story, now gossiped about her overreach. My redirected birthday barbecue was absolute heaven. Friends toasting my stand as the lake glimmered. I knew I defended my peace, and if the hoe eyed my dock again, I'd make ways without hesitation.